Oh no, it is that time again. I mean, we gotta run it back and sound the alarms because we are ranking all Call of Duty League pros today. So of course, before you go any farther, make sure you watch this intro because it's gonna give the context for how we're ranking these players. So while we're going through, you'll actually know why I'm putting guys where I'm putting them. Otherwise, there could be some miscommunications. Don't want that to happen. First of all, I'm just trying to have some fun with this. This is obviously for entertainment, a good conversation to have about certain guys. I'm not trying to put anyone on blast or ruin anyone's careers or anything else. I'm just trying to have some interesting conversation about Call of Duty and with these Call of Duty pros and how we can rank them. And there's so many different aspects and conversations and opinions to be had. And I'd love to hear your comments after you watch through the whole video and how we're actually doing. And we have a new design this time around. So this is what we're rocking with today. Shout out, my goodness. Ooh, it's looking good. We've got the 6 tiers. We're gonna have 8 players per tier. But of course, now that we've gone to 4v4 with only 12 teams, we only have 48 CoD pros to rank. So we've got 6 tiers of 8 players. Do that math. 48 players overall. So now the next step, of course, is to talk about how we're grading these guys. So the framework for how we're going about grading these guys is basically like asking myself the question, okay, if there was a full-on tournament today with all 12 teams there, all of the Call of Duty pros were there, which players would I trust the most to play great Call of Duty? And who are the best Call of Duty players if there was a 12-team tournament today? So we're gonna be going about it with that type of framework. Of course, you have to take into consideration that we've only seen one series of official Call of Duty. Even then, it was a preseason event where there wasn't anything on the line. And other than that, we've only seen scrims. That's why we're doing one now, and then we'll do an updated one in the upcoming few months at some point, and then hopefully maybe 1 or 2 more throughout the year as we go through Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. And that's something I really like about this series as a whole, is going back and seeing the progression of where we thought certain guys were at certain points in their careers. So with that said, I think we have a pretty decent idea of where we're going with this. So let's finally get into the first guy we're grading today. My goodness, I cannot be more excited. Let's go. So with that said, Kenny is up first as our first guy we're grading today. Man, it's feeling good to be back with the new system. So again, the tiebreakers and how we're using the tiebreaker system is if I'm not exactly sure where I want to put a guy at the end, we'll definitely like maybe shift a few guys around. For the most part, we're usually pretty consistent with where we put the guys though. But if I'm like, ah man, a guy's right on the fringe, I'll throw him in the tiebreaker. So as for Kenny, so much upside here with 100 Thieves. Also, we still got their old pictures here. I was hoping they would update them by the time I did this first one, and they have not updated the pictures yet. So there's so much upside here with the 100 Thieves roster. Of course, we saw them get bodied against OpTic in the kickoff match, but I still think Kenny's a fantastic player. It's tough though with the 888s here, where top 16, he's right around the fringe of top 16. So I think we're going to start off with a tiebreaker for now and throw him in the tiebreaker tier, and we'll come back to him in a little bit. I know it's a fence-sitting one for the first guy. We'll definitely come back to him in a little bit. So as for Gunless, obviously in the past, there's moments where he's been a top 8 player. There's moments when he was for sure a lock top 16, but he's right on the fringe as well. We got some pretty tough ones to start off with here. Based off what we've seen in scrims, based off of, you know, the results from the first kickoff event, it's hard to put him in the top, 16 right now. I think he's right on the fringe of top 16, top 24. So I'm going to throw him in the B tier for now. That hurts because I know how good Gunless can be, but it's hard to say that right now he's a top 16 player when we really haven't seen that from him yet so far in Black Ops Cold War. So we'll stick him there for now. Assault is up next, and it is a little bit tougher with him and how we want to grade him. I feel like he's more of a tiebreaker down here somewhere between C and E, but I need to kind of see where a few other guys slot out before we actually get a good number on Assault. So we'll throw him in there for now. So as for Attach, another interesting one. I'm going to use the tiebreaker section pretty heavily at the beginning here, and then probably throw guys, as we move through, I'll start throwing guys in, and that's where you're going to be able to hear those opinions on those guys. But Attach is right on the fringe here as well of top 16. So I'm going to throw him in the tiebreaker tier here for now as well, and we'll come back to him in a second. As for Cammy has shown upside like last year in Modern Warfare at moments where he was insane, really, really good. I think for now, I'm going to have to put him in the C tier, but he could easily move his way up into the B tier, maybe even the A tier if Toronto really starts establishing themselves as a fantastic team. They showed signs of it in the kickoff event, but they're not necessarily there just yet. And we saw even with Bance and the domination that he was putting on. We'll throw Cammy in the C tier for now. So we got Hook up next. Man, top 8 is really close for Hook, dude. Realistically, I think I've got to put him in the A tier, but he is right near the top of it. Obviously, he's a fantastic player and up there with the best of them when it comes to Call of Duty Pros. A tier makes a lot of sense for him. Diamond Khan's our next guy up, man, our first rookie on the board. And so obviously rookies gonna be pretty tough to rank right now. It's hard for me not to put them in the E tier for now, even though they showed a lot of promise in that first match. You know, these are the types of guys that as we move forward, they could absolutely start dominating, and then suddenly they're flying up the list towards the B tier, the A tier even potentially. But for now, I'm gonna leave Diamond Khan in the E tier and see what he does in these upcoming few tournaments before I make another real judgment on him. But he definitely showed a lot of promise. I'm excited to see what he can do, because he could legitimately be a really valuable asset to the Subliners moving forward if this team can figure it out. So on deck, we've got Classic. Another tough one, man, because at times we've seen with this Paris roster the potential that they have, and they looked good against London in the kickoff event. That's only, again, one series. We haven't seen them scrim very many maps so far this year. It's basically, if we have, was against like Clay when they were playing with Hydra or something along those lines. No, I can make a ruling on Classic yet, because I think we need to see where else he falls. We'll put him in the tiebreakers for now. And Kleenex is up next as well. And this one's not easy, man. This is so tough, dude, because I love what Kleenex can bring to the table, and the potential that Kleenex has as a player is awesome, man. And I would love to see him break out this year. I mean, we saw, again, glimpses of it, just like we saw with Cammy last year on Toronto. But right now, it's hard to commit to anything higher than, you know, the bottom of the B tier, maybe the top of the C tier. So I think I'm gonna put him in a C tier as well with Cammy. But man, that's tough, and it doesn't really feel right. There's a chance we move him in the future here, but we'll leave him there for now. So, we got Formal up next. And I mean, it's been impressive. I gotta say, I mean, some OpTic fans, you know, were like, yo, you're doubting Formal. And maybe I was heading into this year. He's been looking really, really good in scrims, looking really good in the kickoff event as well. And so far, Texas Formal has been doing some work. So I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I think it's a pretty solid spot for him. Right there with Hook right now. He's definitely a top 16 player in the league, looking really, really good. And there is still upside for Formal moving forward with OpTic and how this could potentially play out for him. And he's been looking fantastic so far. Oh, baby. Now we got our guy Bance that we just mentioned a second ago. Another Ultra player. Already 3 of the Ultra players are on the list. And man, this is a tough one, dude. Again, before I would have for sure had him down here in the bottom 2 tiers. But I don't want to get too swayed by one series with the kickoff event. But my goodness, dude, he dominated in that kickoff event. Looks so good. And so it's hard for me to not put him in the C tier, but I feel like I need to see a little bit more before I actually do that. Okay, I'm gonna put him in the D tier for now. But again, this is another guy based off what we saw at the kickoff event. If Bance is doing that on the map, oh my word, he could fly up this tier list pretty quick here in the future if he keeps that up. So for now, we'll leave him in D, but man, he could easily find his way up higher. Another tough one, man. Dylan is up next as well. And we've talked so much about the potential in these tier lists that Dylan has. And for a long time, I held out and I had him high up here in Modern Warfare, you know, as a guy, like, we know the potential that he has, and it never really clicked. And so far, we haven't seen it yet in Black Ops Cold War either. So it is tough to rank, and I would love to put him in the B tier or higher, but man, I feel like right now I've got to put him down here in the D tier, man. Him and Bance are hanging out. Again, the potential, the upside is still always there for Dylan based off what we saw in BO4. But right now, I don't think I could confidently put him higher than the D tier currently. So now on deck is a Sim, and man, another tough one, bro. The upside with his Sim is awesome, bro. We saw what he could do in BO4 and how he played, and I was really, really excited for a Sim heading in to Modern Warfare. And then we saw how the Rokkr were playing at the beginning of the year, like, yo, the Rokkr are legit. They're sick. And then things started falling apart for that team. And I feel like a Sim just was never able to change his play style to fit the game as well as it did in BO4 and how you could play like that. And so it's like right now it's hard for me to put a Sim higher than the E tier, even though I would absolutely love to. What we've seen with the Subliners and the struggles that they've had. And so it's like there is so much upside for a Sim in the long term. And he could find himself way higher again, like I'm going to say for a lot of guys. But for now, I'm going to have to leave him in the E tier, and that hurts my heart. That really, really does. I'm even wearing the Subliners hoodie right now. It just is what it is right now with that team. and where they're at with the weird situation with him and Hydra and how that could play out in the long term. So what E tier for a sim. And we got Cellium up next. Wow. Oh man. I gotta throw him in the tiebreakers. I mean, right now there's no way he's gonna be right on that edge of top 8, and so I gotta leave him there for now. Dashy is up next, and obviously, my word, he has looked impressive in Black Ops Cold War, and this is something that we all thought was very, very possible heading into this offseason when he joins that OpTic team. We were like, uh-oh, you know, this is where the Slayer Dashy could really find his way and make his mark on the CDL, and we have seen big time moments of that already, even in one series in the CDL. And of course, you know, the clips of him getting like all the damage in the scrim and everything else. OpTic fans are very high on Dashy right now, which I mean, you know, rightfully so. But I'm not gonna put him in the top 8 for now. But again, bro, I'm gonna keep saying it. He could easily end up inside the top 8. But it just comes down to a matter of there's so many good players right now in the CDL, top heavy. There's so many fantastic players, and he's just gonna barely probably get edged out by a few of these other guys. But my word, keep your eye on Dashy and where he could potentially play and how he could end up moving forward, because he is a threat every single map. And if snipers end up getting added back in, you might have to put Dashy inside of the S tier. We know what Dashy can do with a sniper in hand. It is scary. And that's just, unfortunately, with the GAs, it's just not the case right now. Oh, his duo is right up here next. We got Tej on deck. And this is another interesting one, man. Not easy to grade at all. I think he's right on the fringe of C and D tier for me, so I'm going to throw him in the tiebreakers section for now. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. Oh, Fire is up next as well. Another rookie on deck. Man, again, I think there is a lot of potential for Fire. I'm right in the same boat with DiamondCon, basically, with how they played. I really liked what I saw from Fire, but for now, I think I'm going to leave him in the E tier, even though he could easily find his way up the list. And my goodness, he's a fantastic player. And Illy is up next, man. And oh, baby. I think he's a top 8 player in the league right now. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with me. I hope you guys do, because Illy, the Pope, obviously has looked fantastic. And we saw that into the first series. Again, it was one match against a team that has barely played together. But so far, what we saw with Illy at the end of last season, that nothing seems to have changed so far. And what we've seen from Illy inside of S&D tournaments and playing those types of things in the scrims that we've seen from Dallas, he's really good. And, you know, those things were at least confirmed in a sense in the kickoff event. You know, I could not be more optimistic about Illy moving on this season. I think a lot of you guys know that from the podcast as well, with how we talked about that. Oh, shout out the podcast, by the way. We're doing a giveaway on the podcast of CDL Season 2 merch. So make sure to go follow the podcast on Twitter, Best of 3 Pod on Twitter, and check out the pinned tweet there to sign up for the giveaway. Shout out, you guys, because I want you guys to win some CDL merch. And Illy's just a god, man. He's the Pope. He's doing his thing. And we got Shani up next. So another tough one to grade, because again, Construction Shani shined in COD Champs and looked really, really good. And the London built their roster kind of around him, and how that could potentially play out with London is really, really interesting. But they definitely did not impress in their match. And I have Dylan in the D tier. Realistically, man, I'm a little bit lower on Shani than Minnie. I know this one doesn't feel good. It feels grimy to put him in the E tier. Personally, I just haven't seen that it factor with Shani, really, besides those 2 maps in Champs on Ramaza. I'm just not sold yet. I need to see a little bit more from Shani on London this year before I can move him higher up the list. Again, anything's possible. Very, very possible. He could make something happen, prove me wrong. There is a lot of Call of Duty to be played in Black Ops Cold War, and I would love to see it, man. I would love to see Shani dominate the CDL. So with that said, we got Aqua up next. I kind of just randomly organized these down here, so we're really filling out the E tier here. I mean, I hate to hate. I don't like to hate, you know, but I gotta put Aqua in the E tier as well, man. Again, LAG last year, now on Paris. The team is really interesting in how they can play together. I just don't necessarily see the full-on upside unless Fire ends up being like the Shotzzy or an incredible top 10 player in his own right this year. And that's definitely feasible where Fire could just start dominating. But with Aqua, you know, he's a solid player and he can get the job done for you. But I just don't see it when it comes like the absolute elite playmaking ability that you would need to have to be inside the top 24, or at least certain aspects of your game to be there. Just Aqua's not necessarily there for me right now, and so I'll leave him in the E tier for now. Oh, another one that's really, really tough to grade, Crimsix. All of these, like, you know, legendary AR type players like Crim, Slasher, Clay, they're tough to grade because the intangibles he brings obviously so much to the Dallas Empire. I mean, the playmaking ability, the leadership, the communication, those things are off the charts for Crim. You could put him in the A tier, and I would be totally fine with that. I don't know why I want to bring him down just a little bit and put him in the B tier. That feels a little unfair for Crim, and maybe I'll change it later. But like with him, Clayster, you know, Slasher, those types of guys, I feel like they all deserve to be in the same tier. And so it's like, I feel like if I'm going to put one of them in the A tier, I feel like I need to put all of them in the A tier. But then that doesn't feel right to have all three of them in the A tier. So that's why I think we're going to move him down to the B tier and slot him in there. But I would have no problem if somebody wanted to put Crim inside the A tier. They're right on that fringe of top 16, top 20, right in there type players. And so we'll leave him in the B tier for now. Alex is up next, and another guy who absolutely flashed last year with the Rokkr. He looked so good at moments in that game. Felt like he had a great understanding of it early on in the year, like the Rokkr we thought they did. And they did it early on in the year, and then things fell apart. He hasn't really looked the same since. It's hard for me to put him higher than the D tier right now, even though, you know, we've seen those flashes of Alex at points. And again, this is what people get excited about the London Royal Ravens roster, that the upside is there for them. And it definitely is. If they can figure things out and make it work, the upside is 100% there. But they've had some tough practice right now. And so I would expect London starts off pretty slow. Maybe by the middle of the year, they start catching getting the hang of it and really being a contender. But for now, I feel like, you know, this squad as a whole, you got to keep a little bit lower in the list. So I'll put him down in the D tier. Oh my word. We've got Skies up next. And I mean, no pun intended, Skies has been skyrocketing up people's boards lately. It's hard not to overreact to how good he played, specifically considering it was against FaZe in the Kickoff Classic. And the Mutineers looked fantastic in that one series. Again, we've only seen them really play that one series with their squad. I'm going to put Skies in the tiebreaker section as well, but he is right on that fringe of top 8 right now. He has been fantastic, and he very well could end up there for me moving forward. So Silly's up next. I've gotten a little bit of flack for my like little bit lower takes on Silly on the podcast, and I get that. I mean, Silly has been a legendary player in the CDL, a CoD champion, of course, in World War II, and he's been very, very valuable to teams. But right now, in a league where we have 12 teams, 48 CoD pros, they have to get slotted in here somewhere. And so I'm gonna put Silly in the E tier, man. We've already got 6 of our 8 players in the E tier, which is weird that it worked out that way. That feels bad. That feels really, really bad. And I hate seeing Silly down there because I really like Silly. So we're just gonna have to see. But all right, we got Arcitys up next, another goated player. Oh. I put Skies. I mean, I do think the Arcitys is locked in inside the S tier. There are a few questions, you know, after that first kickoff match, but I don't want to overreact too much to a series against a really good Mutineers team. And so that's my question mark there. I'll leave Arcitys in the S tier. He's a fantastic player, man. And we got Abezy back to back here. I mean, Abezy's also in the S tier. The Tiny Terrors, you know, no spoilers, of course, are incredible. And so I would expect a few more FaZe players to be right up here, you know, contending for an S tier spot. Abezy's fantastic. He's been fantastic since he joined the league in BO4, and that has not slowed down yet. Really, really, really good Call of Duty player. My goodness. So another teammate last year of his, Major Maniac, is up next, and he's right in these middle tiers. I think he's probably right on the fringe of top 24. So he'd be like right here, like right on the fringe. I'm gonna leave him in the tiebreaker section for now. We'll come back to him in a little bit. And we've got Accuracy up next, and I think, you know, he's right up here in the C tier. He's definitely a valuable player to a team, and he has a good insight into how he plays. I'm just not 100% sold right now. I just don't necessarily trust the pacing and how they play. There are some question marks there for me with the Rokkr squad, and so that's why he's a little bit lower. Even though he's been perennially a good player since World War II, those are just the question marks I have right now. So we'll leave him in the C tier, but he could easily move up, you know, on the list, of course, per usual. So with that said, we got Slacked up next. And this is a tough one because of how well the Mutineers have played since he joined the team. Originally, I would have probably had him in the E tier, but now it's like he's for sure at least the D tier. And that feels dirty to put a guy who's won so much in his career like Slacked that low on the list because we know how good he can be. And so that's why it feels a little wrong to have him low. So we'll put him in the D tier for now. I could see him moving up, you know, in the future. But I feel pretty good about that one. We got Clay up next. Again, I feel like this is a pretty easy slot into the B tier with Crimsix. They are both fantastic players. They bring a lot of the same aspects to their team. Of course, I do understand the perspective. Obviously, the Subliners got smoked and Clay had some bad maps playing against a good Dallas team against Crim in that series. And so I could see some Empire fans or some Crim fans being like, are you kidding me? You know, like Crim just smoked him. You're going to put him in the same tier. I understand that. But at the same time, we know what Clay can bring for a squad. We've just got to give this team time. We know who Clay is as a player, even if the evidence doesn't necessarily show that right now with their team they currently have. Oh, we're just going back to back. We got Slasher up next. And I mean, I think the same thing with Slasher. There's moments where Slasher is an insane player. And as we move along throughout this year, I imagine he'll move up the list. He could probably find himself in the A tier. And I mean, at moments last year, he was flirting with the S tier as a player because of how dominant he was at moments. And I think we're going to end up seeing that this year. But 100T or Thieves, they really, really struggled in that match against OpTic. That's an understatement with how they played. And so it's not really fair to put him higher than B tier right now. Obviously, again, I don't want to overreact, but B tier feels pretty fair with the upside that he has as a player, but also with the struggles that, you know, 100T, LA Thieves has had so far with how they've played. So we'll keep him in the B tier for now. Now we've got Envoy up next, and I mean, he's obviously an S tier player. He is fantastic, man. Every aspect of the game. He's such a well-rounded player. His communication in game, he does so much of that leadership aspect, even though he's so young. And then with the talent, of course, the gun skill, and of course, you know, his just natural intelligence and how he plays around the map. He's just such a well-rounded player and such a valuable asset for a team. And there's a reason why OpTic is probably a top 2 team right now, based off of what we've seen so far. They're looking really, really good. And Envoy is a big part of that. And we got Simp up next. Back-to-back S-tier players, man. Obviously, Simp is fantastic. I don't think I can emphasize enough how important Simp and Abezy are as a duo and how great Simp is as a player and what he brings in slaying inside of Search and Destroy. He's such a patient player as well, with even though how aggressive he can play, you know, whereas some players are pretty one-dimensional in Search and Destroy, where, you know, they have their certain style that they just kind of rush, they get a first blood. I mean, Abezy's kind of like that, where he plays for the first blood, and he does that extremely well in S&D, and that's why they complement each other so well, because Simp can play very patient inside of S&D, and how they want to play that. Simp is just so good, man. And I've done so many Learn from the Pros videos about these guys in the S tier, and you can go check them out. For some of them already up for Black Ops Cold War, with FaZe, with Simp, Arcitys, Envoy, and how these guys play. They're really, really good players, and very deserving of S tier. Temp is up next. Very interesting one here. It's somewhere in the middle here. I feel like you got to put him in probably the C tier right now. That hurts though, because I really like Temp, and I love his energy and his wild energy that he brings to a team, and how he plays. And he's hilarious. And so I would love to see Temp and that team really start taking off here. It feels wrong having him in the C tier, because I feel like he should be at least in the B tier. But okay, for now we'll put him in the tiebreakers and keep moving on. Priestahh. He's up next. I think A tier makes a lot of sense for Priestahh, and we've seen the upside that he has as an individual. The Rokkr still has some things to work out here, but he's a very, very talented player. And it makes sense for him inside the A tier. So Vivid is up next. And another tough one to grade, because Vivid, we have seen moments where Vivid is really, really good, especially in S&D, where last year in Modern Warfare, he was a good S&D player all the way through, but there's just some weird pacing situations inside of Respawn where I feel like he lacks some sort of ability to like really, really play very, very well off of his teammates. And maybe that'll change with LAG and that squad with the veterans that are around him now. But for now, I feel like I'm gonna put him in the D tier because he has so much upside as a player still. There's still improvement to be had with Vivid, especially inside the Respawn. So Priestahh's up next. I think D tier probably also makes sense for him right now. Again, Seattle has had some problems so far with their scrims, and they had some problems against LAG inside of their first match in the kickoff event as well. So there's been moments in his career where he has been incredible. He's been, you know, an A tier type player. But right now, he's been having some struggles. And so I really hope that they can figure this one out, because I really like that Seattle team. But right now, I feel like D tier makes the most sense. Methods is up next. This is an easy C tier for me. He's right in there. Again, him and accuracy are kind of like buddies when it comes to the ARs right now and how they play. I really like Methods and how he plays. And of course, he's the funniest player in the CDL. No cap about that one. But we'll go get C tier for him. Scraps is up next. Another tough one to grade, man, because there's so much potential with Scraps and how he plays and what he can bring to a team. I think I'll put him in the C tier as well, but I could see someone putting him in the D tier right now because he did not play that great for Paris in their first series. But I still got faith that Scraps can be a very, very good player in Black Ops Cold War. We got Looney up next, and this is a tough one to grade as well. I got Priestahh in the D tier. And again, we know the ability that Looney has as a player and the intangibles he brings to a squad, but right now it's just not showing up for the surge. And so that's why I feel like I've got to put him in the D tier right now. And we haven't seen those flashes of slang that we were hoping to see. And so that's why Looney's in the D tier for now. Shotzzy, I mean, dude, we all know Shotzzy is right here firmly in the S tier. If he's not the best player in the league, he's at least the second best player in the league. And Shotzzy is incredible and a fantastic player. We don't even need to talk more about him because we all know how good he is. Awakening is a really interesting one. I might be bought into Awakening finally. I was no early mover with Awakening. I wanted to take it slow with him and see how he developed as a player. But at this point, with how the Mutineers are playing and what we saw from them against FaZe, and again, you can take a little bit more away from that because it was against FaZe, and we know that they're going to be a good team this year. And Awakening looked very, very good in that match. And I think Mutineers might just be legit, and Awakening is going to be a big part of that. He's right there in the A tier. Octane's up next, and again, before he was a lock in the S tier. I mean, basically during Modern Warfare, I just saw him as a lock. But right now, I'm having a few doubts about him as like the elite of elite players. So I'll for sure put him inside the A tier. But like right now, it's like with that team that they have in Seattle, at some point, this has to start clicking. And of course, in a gun skill aspect, Octane is insane. I mean, his gun control, his recoil, his centering, his ability to win gunfights is nuts. And we just need to see a little bit more when it comes to the winning aspect and the team play from Octane to make it happen. Then we got Scump on the board up next. And I think he's solidified himself now as a firm, top 16 player in the league for sure. Even though some people had some question marks about that last year. And at points, there were some people who were like, are you kidding me? He's not a top 8 player. Like, you are insane. And then there were some people who were like, are you kidding me? He is not a top 30 player. Like, the opinions on Scump last year were crazy. Some were literally like, he is a guaranteed top 8 player. Some had him as low as like 40, So it's like, my word. My firm opinion is that he is 100% a top 16 player in the CDL, especially back in 4v4 on a Black Ops game. He's looked very, very good so far. And of course, inherently, us as a community are watching a lot of Scump, watching a lot of Formal, a lot of the OpTic guys as a whole, because they actually do stream their scrims, thank goodness. And so overall, from what I've seen from Scump, he has been awesome and just definitely a great player. And then now we've got Apathy up next. Another tough one to grade. He's right in here somewhere, C and D tier. I'm gonna say I'm putting him probably near the back of the C tier. We saw him, go off for a little bit there in the matches. I think there's still a lot of potential with Apathy as a player. And I would love nothing more than Apathy to start dominating and be able to put him in like the A tier. Ooh, that would feel good. And up next, we got Neptune. This is interesting, man. Okay, he's obviously the rookie for the Mutineers. If you don't know who Neptune is, he's a former Halo pro. I put the other 2 rookies in the E tier. I'm tempted to make kind of a statement here. I don't know if it's necessarily a statement because I think a lot of people agree with me that he looked awesome. I'm going to put him in the C tier for now. And there is a lot of upside for Neptune as a player to fly up this board and end up way higher. I mean, way higher on this list. Neptune could be an awesome player. Their success in S&D against FaZe 2 was really surprising. And Neptune looked good in that. His patience as a player, awesome. So with that said, Mac is up next. And I think he firmly sits right now inside of the B tier. He's a really, really good player. It's hard to say exactly where he fits into the puzzle right now. I could see him moving down a little bit. I could see him moving up. There's just still so many question marks with that New York squad. Then we got Zero right now. Oh yeah, we have some fun surprises here. We have Zero right now, but right now he's, he might not even be playing right now. It's hard to say. I feel like I gotta put Zero inside the D tier for now. Doesn't feel good. We got 2, 4, 6, 8 in the D tier right now. We got 2, 4, 6 inside the E tier. Okay, so we might have to make some changes here. It actually rounds out. Our last 2 here are Hydra and Parasite. Oh, baby. Let's go, Parasite. Because the rumors are that Parasite might be replacing Zero because Zero is currently stuck in Europe. But we'll see. So I'll leave Zero in the D tier. Again, as an individual player, he could easily be in the C tier. But this is our 48 players right here. So now we got to get these last few guys down. Okay, Classic. I'm sorry, man. I got to throw you in the E tier. We got to create some space. So we got to move one of these guys down to the E tier. 2, 4, 6, 7. We got to move one of these guys down. That hurts. And so the question is, who do I throw down there? Because it doesn't feel good to put any of those guys down there. All of these guys are such good COD pros. And this is why it sucks, man. Because putting guys in like the bottom 8 players, it hurts because it's like, you know, before none of these guys would be in the bottom 8 players because that's why they're in the league right now. Because before we had so many more pro players on every team. So, man, do I put Assault down there? I'm going to do it, man. This feels bad. This hurts. I don't like this. Oh, I hate that. That's terrible. I could see, you know, you could put Vivid down there, but I don't feel good about that. Looney, Zero. Yeah, I'm gonna leave Assault down there, but I don't feel good about that one. That hurts to put him in the bottom tier because I think he's definitely better than a lot of those guys. He's a very good player. And that means we gotta move Tej up. I think that feels right. I'll move Tej up. I'll move Tej up to the C tier, and Temp is sitting right here. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8 inside the C tier right now. So the question is, do I want to put Temp in the B tier, or do I want to move up Cammy or Kleenex potentially? And that is tempting. No pun intended. I'm gonna leave Temp inside. Ooh, actually, I'm gonna move Cammy up to the B tier, and I'm gonna move Temp down to the C tier. That doesn't feel good either, but I guess we're gonna go with that for now. Kenny, I think he fits here in the B tier. That makes a lot of sense. And I would say also, so does Major Maniac. So that leaves 2, 4, 6, 8. That's our 8 there. Now we're down to the final few here with deciding our top 8, top 16 players. So we have 2, 4, 6 inside the S tier already. We need 2 more inside the S tier. This gets really, really tough. We're sitting at that. I think Skies deserves it, man. We're putting Skies inside the S tier. I'm going to make a little, my statement here is that Skies is a top 8 player in the league right now. I was 100% skeptical last year during Modern Warfare, especially at moments with the online. And maybe that changes if we ever have a LAN event, you know, by 6 months from now or whatever, whenever it is. I don't know, man. Skies is sitting pretty right now, looking like a fantastic player. I really do believe in him as a player. We need 1 more player inside the S tier here. So the question mark for me is, I'm looking at probably 3 guys, Cellium, Dashy, and Hook. That is a really, really tough call for me. I love all 3 of those guys. They are incredible Call of Duty players, but I lean the champion, the former defending COD champion. I feel like I'll give him the edge in that regard. That means we'll slot in Cellium right here. We'll slot in Attach right here. And I think that's our list right there. I mean, we've seen the value that Attach brings to a team in the past. Of course, it is a little bit risky right now to put him above some of those guys that are in the B tier. Like, I could see the argument for somebody putting Crimsix, you know, a bit ahead of Attach right now, or Kenny maybe, or something like that. I understand that. I would be totally fine if someone did that. But I do believe in Attach as a player. He's been so consistent, and I love Attach as how he plays the game, and the Rokkr have a lot to prove moving forward, but I think they can do that. So here is our final list here of the top 8 in every category. My goodness, that is a wild time. And we've got our bonus round. Our bonus round, we got Parasite and Hydra. I really do think that Hydra can be a really good player in this league. From what we saw in the scrims, I think there's some potential there with how he plays. I really, really like how it could potentially work out when he gets to the United States. I would put him in the C tier for now. And Parasite, I mean, dude, 100% S tier. I mean, obviously, right? Parasite's a freaking god. I mean, Parasite's goated, 100%. But it'd be hard for me to put Parasite any higher than D tier right now. Realistically, you'd have to put him in probably E tier or D tier. You know, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he would be a D tier player. And maybe even higher than that. Who knows? But there you go, man. That's a final list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Of course, drop all your comments down below. I know you guys have your opinions. This ended up being a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I was going to try to hurry through it and get this thing down in like 20 minutes because there's only 48 players, but we ended up way above that. So again, the podcast giveaway, head to the Twitter, best of 3 pod on Twitter, and the pin tweet is how you enter. And then of course, we do a lot of this on the podcast. We do a lot of this with other videos on the channel. So subscribe and learn from the pros videos, tips videos, and everything else. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your voice of ALL, and we will see you next time. I'm out.